and we're definitely open to all of that. So let's keep the communication lines open, and definitely we're here to grow together. And since we are all adults and all are mature, there's no worry about discussing any topic whatsoever. There's nothing off the line. We're happy, to hear, because these are real things that exist in our world. We have colleagues who are of different beliefs or faith systems, and all of these questions do come up. So I do apologize that we actually didn't invite, but if you're okay that we continue, are you okay to continue the series as planned, and then later do other things? Okay, 2 more questions that came out. What's the difference between religion and a cult? I don't want to say it's only sheer numbers, but world religions have been established for centuries. They have many, many followers. I would say at least in the millions or sometimes in the billions. Versus cults that are offshoots. Cults are also known by their extreme behavior. So you might find cults who self-mutilate, or cults that believe, the end of times is imminent, and sometimes they would enclose themselves in a farm and they would go on rooftops waiting for Jesus to come, and they inflict certain harms upon their followers. So they would restrict them from doing things. They would force them sometimes into marriages. Have you heard of part of the Mormon beliefs? I guess they're cults that would, imprison little girls, and a man that would marry many girls and have children for them, and he convinces them that he's a prophet and they must obey him. So I think cults are more or less defined by their extreme behavior and being offshoots of different religions, or having their own set of beliefs which are not mainstream, basically. If we do a quick comparison, it seems to me that Judaism and Hinduism are more closely tied with a specific race, ethnicity, than Christianity, Islam, or Buddhism. Do you share the same thought? If yes, what would think are the main reasons behind this? Example, Christians are actively preaching and converting, but not Jews. So every religion grew in a particular geographical area in the world, right? So some of the Eastern religions, such as Buddhism and Hinduism, they started more or less in India. Some people say that the Buddha or the Enlightenment was from China, but actually I think most people agree that he was from India. And Hinduism does not prescribe to one particular God or understanding of God, but again, they see the manifestation of God in anything and in everything. And there are hundreds of religions in India, including Hinduism, and amongst other local religions. So Hinduism is one of the biggest religions in India, but there are hundreds more of deities and gods and goddesses in Hinduism. So that's why we, up until the past century, Hinduism and Buddhism were more or less contained in Southeast Asia. All of the Southeast Asian countries, in around China and India and Vietnam and Cambodia, and so all of the Southeastern Asian countries, Buddhism had spread out. Hinduism more or less in India. Judaism grew, of course, out of the Middle East. Christianity and Islam, these 3 religions started out in the Middle East. But Christianity spread with the empire, like the Roman Empire, as it grew, mainly around the time of King Constantine and Queen Helen, who accepted Christianity as one of the national religions. They did not abolish all of the Roman gods, because this was something was inherently rooted in the Roman cultures. So they accepted Christianity as one of the state religions. But after that, when Constantine received a vision about a cross and a voice that came to him saying, "With this you shall conquer," he started using, the cross and Christianity, and he kind of combined the acquisitions of different countries as he spread out the Roman Empire, and he attached to it Christianity. And the Crusades continued all the way until 15th, maybe 16th centuries, coming to North America and all of the known world at the time. And the big part, this is how Christianity, extended into the world, because it was attached to the Christian Europe. It's not the same in Oriental Orthodoxy. I mean, we're jumping a little bit, but again, in Eastern Orthodoxy, you have King Constantine establishing the first Christian city in the world, which is called Constantinople. This is modern-day Turkey, of course. And he made a road that connected Rome with Constantinople in the east, and became the Christian center of the east. Out of it grew the Eastern Orthodox Church. It was, the ecumenical patriarch has always been in Constantinople for the Eastern Orthodox, until more or less recently Greece next door took on that role. But from there, Christianity spread in the Balkans, and the Balkans, I mean by that, going to Russia. And but this was not through war in the beginning, even though after all it was kind of imposed on the people. Anytime you have a 90% or more majority of one religion, you know that at some point that religion was forced on the people. That's a rule of thumb. Because if you give people the choice, you can never have a 90% majority in anything, whatever you do. So again, Christianity spread in Romania, Bulgaria, all of that areas of the Balkans, maybe 15 countries. Orthodoxy entered into them. So it became the Eastern Orthodox geographical area and the majority. In the West, it was the Catholic Church, of course, who kind of spread quickly. And in the Far East, you have Buddhism and Hinduism. In Africa, you had the tribal religions, of course, which are more of local religions. Just I want to go back to make sure that I answered the question properly. If we do a quick comparison, it seems to me that Judaism and Hinduism are more closely tied with a specific race or ethnicity. So for Judaism, there was a whole understanding that the God of heaven and earth is more or less a private property. And Judaism is not a religion that preaches, because they consider themselves being in a covenant. And there's a sign for the covenant. Anyone who is to join that covenant has to obey God's commandments, such as circumcision, for example. It's a sign. We have baptism in Christianity. Judaism has the circumcision, and also observing the Sabbath, and amongst other things. So Judaism was never a religion that preaches and or reaches out to other races. So yes, it is a local religion tied to a certain ethnicity, more or less, because every Jew had to kind of trace their history back all the way to one of the 12 tribes of Israel. Having said that, there are exceptions. There were some ways for Gentiles to join Judaism, but they had to be circumcised, and that was a way to enter into Judaism. Christianity, again, the command of Christ to teach and preach, it took some time, because Christianity was under persecution in the first 3 centuries until Emperor Constantine, who made it a state religion, and from there it started to spread with the empire. Islam is a religion of preaching, and a big part, again, of spreading Islam was unfortunately through the sword, and forcing people to submit. And again, just in case someone is not going to be here for the Islam talk, of course, Islam does not mean peace. Salam is peace. But Islam means to submit or to surrender. So the idea of being a Muslim is to surrender your own self or will to the will of God, of course. but it entails many other things. Okay. What do you think about people who believe in multiple religions or beliefs? Is there a name for these groups of people? I.e., as long as you believe in a God, it doesn't matter which one. Well, if you're going to say about a God, and of course the spelling is going to be with the small g, not a G, because quite often when we say God with a capital G, we're referring to the God, the one and only God. But if we're going to believe in multiple gods, then they fall under the polytheistic or pantheistic religions. And again, we encourage people to do more investigation, because that attitude of it doesn't matter, or I don't care, is an attitude of postmodernism. It doesn't matter, who cares, this and that. I think we should care. I think it matters. And this is the most important question that we can ask. What does being a Christian mean to you? How would who you are, how you live your life change if you subscribe to the idea of secular humanism? Very good question. We haven't discussed secular humanism yet, but basically we said the definition of religion entails two things: a relationship with the deity and a moral conduct code, a code for moral conduct. Secular humanism deals only with the latter one, which is the moral conduct, which is basically to say, do unto others as you want them to do unto you. In some, I wouldn't call them religions, but sects, they say, do as you wish, harm no one, for example. So, for secular humanism, there are levels. They are not combined all, or they agree all on what that moral conduct should be. What's happening in North America is that North America, because it has been a Christian country or continent for the longest time, for centuries, the Christian morality is embedded in it, in its heart. But now, as people are fleeing away from Christianity, basically what they're doing is that they are taking Christian morality or code of conduct, but stripping away the belief in God, or the worship part, or the adoration for a higher deity. So if we refer back to the quote by St. Augustine, he said that our hearts are restless until they find rest in you. So that would be the main difference between secular humanism and proper Christian life, is that there is always going to be a gap in one's heart, because everyone is searching for God. No matter how far we get from God, there is something inherent in humanity that searches back to Him. The other biggest concern is that, again, when we look at secular humanism, it's going to be relative. Every generation, every person is going to have their own relative point of views of what it means to be good, what it means to be a nice person. So a good person in North America is going to be a very different nice person in Asia, going to be a very different than a nice person in the Middle East and Africa, etc. Because there are no grassroots, there's no foundation for what it means to be nice. For example, most of humanity agree that cannibalism is wrong, or killing someone is wrong. That's secular humanism. You said it, just common sense. You don't hurt each other. Who said that killing someone is wrong? Is it the law? What if the law changes tomorrow? That means killing someone is okay? So there is that argument against secular humanism, that unfortunately there are no standards where people can all agree upon. Or is it, if we all come together as a city of Toronto or Markham or Mississauga or this or that, and we agree that today we all think that this is right and this is wrong. In 5 years, if we all disagreed, we can change and make right into wrong and wrong into right. And a lot of people are uncomfortable with that idea. So I would say that's the basic difference between resting in God, or in a God, or in religion or faith, and finding confidence on that and stability and a foundation, and between secular humanism that's always evolving and on the change. And based on that code that we read, unfortunately, when it's left to the human logic or mind, we tend to disintegrate or go towards error rather than doing what is right. It sounds like Islam, to submit your will to God, is very similar to what Christianity asks for. What's the difference? Or will this be covered later? I promise you it will be covered later, because that's a whole lot of topic, and I have to do justice when I speak about Islam, because there's a lot of Islamophobia, there's a lot of sensitivity within the Coptic community towards what happened, the persecutions, all of these things. So I want to be more objective when I speak about Islam. I just don't want to throw things at you without the proper respect that is due to the Islamic faith. Any other questions before we conclude? Are we good? You've just been hit by like a tsunami, right? A lot of information tonight. But thank you so much for being here. Look forward to continuing our discussion next week, Lord willing. Please keep in mind that we have a beautiful fair and doors open Markham happening on Saturday the 22nd here in the church. Lots of beautiful tours, and the community is going to be invited to the church. If you're able to help in any way, please submit your name to Mariana, and she will. Would you like to say something, Mariana? Please, do you want to come up?